Hey everybody, I'm Jack Midkiff, and I want to welcome you to my podcast. I'm pretty excited about today because I'm going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which happens to be one of my favorite cities, and I'm just excited about getting into it. Before I do, I just want to say thanks for always being a part of this podcast whenever you are, and if it's something that you enjoy and you think other people would, share it with them. Let them know about it, and hopefully you get some information that helps you, some inspiration, and today I just hope that you have fun because that's what today's podcast is all about. I want to give a little disclaimer here. In any of the information that I'm given, I do not claim to be a historian. I do not claim to be 100% accurate with all these facts because I'm using facts that are given to me by other people, and I don't know these jokers. So if you hear me say something, you go, that's not right. Okay, maybe it isn't. But I'm taking it as close to facts as I can find. Let's say it that way. All right. But today I want to talk about Nashville, Tennessee. It has been one of my favorite places for as long as I can remember. When I was a little kid, we would watch Hee Haw, and we would watch the Porter Wagoner Show. One of my favorite stories, my favorite things about the Porter Wagoner Show is, we watched it every week. And Porter Wagoner, if you are not familiar with that name, he was a guy from West Plains, Missouri, that came to Nashville, and he's got quite the story of how he got there, which a lot of the early country music guys, they have quite the story because they had to work and just do lots of things that today, not taking away from the hard work that is done, but a lot of the foundation was laid in the music business and in Nashville by these early guys that, is already there. So it doesn't have to be done now. There again, not taking away from the hard work that people put in, because my son he's been in Nashville working in the music business for the last 12 years, and it's not an easy business. But going back to me, Porter Wagoner was like bigger than life. He wore these suits that had more rhinestones on them than you could, count, and it was just amazing. Well, my mama ordered me a Porter Wagoner suit from Sears and Roebuck. Does anybody remember Sears and Roebuck? Well, before it was just Sears, it was Sears and Roebuck, and we didn't have a Sears store close to us, but we had a place where you place the orders and then you go pick up the orders, because I was raised in that generation where you get this big book in the mail and you sit and you look at all these pages and you just dream and dream and dream, and you place your order and then you get it in a few weeks. So I got this suit back, and all it was basically is a little, probably since it was in the 1970s, it probably amounted to not much more than a leisure suit, a leisure suit for a little kid with a little bit of embroidery in it. But man, that was so exciting to me. That's one of my first memories of being excited about the music business. And I didn't even realize the depth of my love, the depth that my love would be, or I would have, how I need to say that, in my life for country music and Nashville, Tennessee. But I want to give just a little history about the city itself. And I found this. I just Googled it. So if you want to find any of these facts, just Google it. I even look at my mug. I love to collect mugs, and my mug says Opryland, USA. But in Nashville, or when Nashville started, and I'm not gonna be real heavy in these kind of facts, so don't get too bored. But it says the first settlers. I found this interesting, however, because Fort Nashville is still there. The little log cabin is actually still there. The first settlers in what is known now as Nashville were Indians of the Mississippian culture who lived in the area about 1000 to 1400 A.D. They raised corn, made great earthen mounds, painted beautiful pottery, then mysteriously disappeared, it said. It said that other Indians, the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, and the Shawnee followed and used the area as a hunting ground. The first white men to come to the area were French fur traders who established a trading post around 1717. The first settlement, however, was not established until 1779. It was then on the banks of the Cumberland River near the center of the present-day downtown Nashville. Then a band of pioneers led by the Englishman James Robertson. And if you are in or around or ever been to Nashville, that's a familiar name because there's a James Robertson Parkway. The Englishman James Robertson cleared the land and built a log stockade. This was Fort Nashville, named in honor of General Francis Nash, who won a claim in the new community that was then part of North Carolina. In 1784, the community's name was changed from Nashboro to Nashville. And as I said, that little fort, Nashboro, is still right on the Cumberland River banks down there, and it's right beside of First Avenue. So my house in Nashville is off of Lebanon Pike, which turns into First Avenue, and First Avenue runs all the way down, of course, down through downtown, and it runs right by the river. And if you're on First Avenue where Broadway comes in, you look across the river, that is where the stadium is, where the Tennessee Titans came in. And now, 20-some years later, they're talking about changing that whole area. The only thing that is constant, is change, and Nashville is a ever-changing city. So that's all of that kind of history I want to talk about. Now, I want to talk about the music industry. That's what, of course, made me so interested in Nashville. I love to go to Nashville. I'm in Nashville every week, usually 2 or 3 days a week, 2.5 days a week anyway. And I have often referred to it as one of my happy places. I do believe, I said this is going to be fun and not spiritual, but I'm a spirit living in a body. So everything has spiritual implications. Places are important. God made places before he made people. So where you end up in life, where you spend your time, where you go to church, where you live, where your house is, it's all very important because places are important. So if you talk about the music industry as we really know it. Now there's history that goes back before the 1920s. As a matter of fact, I think I read on here a while ago, the Fisk Jubilee Singers were in Nashville in like the 1800s, maybe. Okay, here we go. The story begins in the 1870s with the Fisk Jubilee Singers, a vocal group from Nashville's Fisk University, composed entirely of freed black slaves. The Fisk Jubilee Singers adopted the operatic singing style of the day to sing Negro spirituals. They were wildly popular and not only toured the United States, but also Europe with their uniquely American sound. And this is pretty amazing right here. It was after a concert attended by none other than Queen Victoria of Great Britain that Her Highness reportedly addressed the singers and said, "You must come from the Music City." That's pretty phenomenal to me. So, the name Music City obviously goes farther back than just the 1920s. However, I am not that familiar with other music genres. And there again, I'm going to say this. It's not that I believe that I know all and it's the end all. It's just I love the history of country music. So now, the Grand Ole Opry was established in 1925. A guy by the name of George Hay. He is known as the solemn old judge, George D. Hay. He started this little barn dance thing they called and he named it the Grand Ole Opry. But he did it as a platform for an insurance company called the National Life and Accident Insurance Company. He started it so that there'd be entertainment, because we're talking 1920s here. I know that there's possibly people that are listening to this that we are so familiar with our devices. We're so comfortable and used to our internet service and computers and all that. We're talking about a day that most homes were very, very thankful to have a battery-powered radio, period, as their entertainment. This was before television. This was before any of the modern technology. And they would gather around a radio once a week for their entertainment. And we are entertained 24 hours a day, 7 days a week now. Not complaining about that, but I'm just saying you have to understand this and really get the appreciation for it. You have to remember what they went through just to be on the radio. But it says that in 1925, the National Life and Accident Insurance Company had the idea of launching a radio station to promote its business, and they called it WSM. Now, the reason they called it WSM, which WSM radio and television, I think the television station is WSMV in Nashville, but they still use those call letters today. And what that actually stands for is We Shield Millions. So this was birthed completely as an advertisement campaign. It was nothing more, nothing less than to be able to get people to buy their insurance. And so they started calling it WSM. And let's see, it says Saturday nights so this radio station was formed to sell insurance. And then it says Saturday nights were reserved for the WSM barn dance. And it says that it was an evening of live and lively country music. And now it's not in this, but I know I heard just not too long ago something I was listening to. They were talking about how George Hay would name the people who come on. And there was one entertainer. His name was Uncle Dave Macon. I think he was from the Murfreesboro area, now what we call Murfreesboro. And he was a banjo player, and they said that I know who I was listening to. I was listening to Roy Acuff and Grant Turner on an old interview not too long ago. And they were saying that Dave Macon was this very funny, lively character. And they also said that the longer the show went, the funnier and the happier and the more lively he got, because in his banjo case, he also would always carry in a little bottle. And so they were talking about, he was one of the very first entertainers. But George D. Hay would name these people the fruit jar drinkers and I don't even remember now, but just very primitive, very, very primitive, but just the desire to have fun. But in 1925, they started that, and then and they started having it, I believe. Let's see if it says this. It said WSM built a auditorium because they were having it in the insurance building, I think, to start with. And people started coming, and the crowd started growing. And it says in 1927, they had built a building, and the weekly program was officially named the Grand Ole Opry. Now, I'm gonna share a little pet peeve I have. I hear people, even in the business, calling the Grand Ole Opry the Grand Old Opry. It doesn't have a D. It's not old. It's not Grand Old Opry. It's Grand Ole, O-L-E Opry. Now, what that matters? Nothing other than respect to the establishment. So in 1932, WSM got a brand new antenna, the tallest in North America at the time, and broadcast 50,000 watt clear channel signal that every home in America, coast to coast. Now you think about that. From coast to coast, every home in America could pick up this signal in 1932. Wow. Today, there's so much going on. That also speaks to the population. That speaks to, a lot of different things that are now implemented into our society that wasn't then. It was so much more rural then. And here's another thing. You start talking about the 1700s, and we even initially talked about 1000 AD up to 1400. And you think, man, that's a long time ago, which it was. It was hundreds of years ago. But you think about, in the scheme of things, in the scheme of life, we're not talking, especially in the early 20s. There's probably, no doubt, that's less than 100 years ago. Even at 1925, we're recording this in 2022, so less than 100 years ago, there's people still alive today that was around. So technology, here's my point. Technology and the way we get this stuff is so different and so much better today. It really is. Although I celebrate the old, I celebrate the past. I'm thankful today that I can turn my phone on and listen, that I don't have to wait till Saturday night and make sure my batteries are charged on my radio, So I'm very thankful. But it's just kind of amazing to me how just really that short a time ago, things were so primitive. But it goes on to talk about the Grand Ole Opry was once the most popular radio show of its day. So they were at the War Memorial Auditorium, which is still in Nashville today, until 1943. In 1943, they went into the Ryman Auditorium. The Ryman Auditorium, now I do not have this history pulled up, so I'm just going to pull it out of my personal file here and in my brain, and just share with you what I know about it. So I may not have all the dates. But the Ryman Auditorium was built by a businessman that traveled up and down the river. And I think that's one of the main reasons, no doubt, that Nashville was established where it was, because the Cumberland River was one of the main channels that people traveled on of that day. And so he was a riverboat captain, and his name was Ryman, and his name absolutely escapes me. His first name escapes me, and I apologize about that. But Mr. Ryman built this church, and they started having church in this building. Well, in 1943, they started having the Grand Ole Opry in the Ryman Auditorium, which was a former church. It was a former tabernacle. And I heard in the interview that I was just referring to a few minutes ago, I heard Roy Acuff say, because he was there when they started having, he was already in Nashville, and he's from the East Tennessee area. He said they moved into the Ryman Auditorium in 1943, he said, and we stayed too long. Now, I don't really know everything that he meant by that, but I do know that it started, the Grand Ole Opry that started in 1925 went to a couple different locations until 1943, and then they went into the Ryman Auditorium. From 1943 until 1974, they were in the Ryman Auditorium, and I've heard so many stories about how it got so hot and the crowds had grown so exponentially that they literally couldn't hardly get in the door, and it was just really miserable by the time the early 70s. Because if you think about the early 70s, we were getting into an era where people were having air conditioning in their home. And today that seems so odd to say they had air conditioning, because everybody does. Well, back in that day, they did not. In the 40s, probably very few homes actually had air conditioning. And so by the 70s, we were starting to, as a society, enjoy all these amenities where you'd go to the Ryman Auditorium and it was miserable. So in 1974, that's when Opryland was built, and I think Opryland opened in 73 over a few miles away from downtown on a farm. And it's so amazing. If you drive around that area right now, there are still, as busy and as big and as built up as that area is, if you look over behind some businesses like the Nashville Palace and in that area off of Music Valley Drive, there are still acres and acres of just farmland. And that's what it looks like, just farmland over in there in 2022. Now, past this year, I don't know how long it's going to stay that way, but they found this big farm and they built Opryland. They started Opryland Hotel, and they built the Grand Ole Opry House. So in 1974, they moved into the Grand Ole Opry House, and they're still there today. Now, the music part was one family that is really given the credit or blamed for the music industry being what it is the Owens, the Bradleys. It was Harold and Owen Bradley, two brothers. And I never met Owen. I actually got to meet Harold a few years ago. And they came up with what was known for years as the Nashville Sound. And it's just amazing to me the progress that has come and the changes that has happened in the music industry. I love old country music. I also love new country music. In my life, and I've probably come to know this more in the last 6.5 years than ever before. It's really hit home more, I guess. Nothing stays the same. So you either you flow with change and you become better too, or you get stuck. And this is not just music, it's in life. You either flow with the progression of life or you get stuck. and you miss out. And so as much as I love traditional country music, quite frankly, I get embarrassed a little sometimes when people start talking about new acts and new people, because in most of my life I've always been so up on the newest, but I'm not so much as versed in the new stuff as I am the older stuff today. But I still celebrate all the new artists. I celebrate the new sound. You know what? It doesn't have to be your favorite for you to celebrate other people. And that's, there again, not just in music. But I just want to tell you that Nashville is a place that has, just in the last probably 10, 12 years at least, because as I said, that's how long my son has officially lived in Nashville. I told him one day, I was on the phone with him, and I said, you know what? If I didn't know where I was right now, I would not know where I am right now. Meaning, there has been so much change in the city just in the last few recent years, because now, and I don't know how legitimate this is. I've just been told this, but I was told a few years ago that Nashville was officially named an IT city. Well, what that means, the way I understand it, is it used to be that people would go to Nashville for a specific reason, maybe whether it was Opryland or the Grand Ole Opry. Or now people go to Nashville just to be in Nashville, because the city is so diverse. The city has so many things going. Now, I will tell you, being a huge country music fan of all the stars that I grew up on, it irritates me a little bit that they have ripped apart Music Row, because this city that was built, the fame of this city that was primarily built on music and around music, the history of it is that back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, even 80s, I can remember in the 80s I would drive down through there, and you didn't see high-rise buildings like you do today. You saw little houses on 16th, 17th, Division Street, Demumbrian. All those streets, you would see little houses. And out in the yard of those little houses, you would see Warner Brother Records or Liberty Records or CBS Records or Universal Publishing. Or I don't think it was Universal at that time, but that's a large publishing company today. But you'd see all these little signs, because the business was started by people with a passion, more passion than money, more passion than notoriety. And because it was good, it just has grown and grown. And it's been said that Nashville is actually now the songwriter capital of the world. It's not just about country music. It's not just about one style or one genre. It's a plethora. I love that idea. I love when people come together from different backgrounds and make good things. But me, old Jack, the old country music fan here inside of me, goes, why couldn't you use all that other land and leave Music Row area alone? There, at one time, there was literally dozens of little recording studios up and down 16th Avenue, 17th, Division. There's still some. I think on Division, there's still one called the Omni. And if you go back in history and you read all those, of all the hits that have been recorded there. But you've got, I got the pleasure of playing piano in a studio that was built by Porter Wagner and Dolly Parton. It was where their publishing company that was named Opar, that was back in the 70s. It's totally gone now. I also, even Jackie Lee in the mid-2000s, like 2006, 7, 8, something like that, we went in and done a little recording there in a place called the Sound Shop. It was right down from Music Row. Not there anymore. Brooks and Dunn, and that's just one, but just tons and tons of country music artists from the 80s and 90s had recorded in that studio. That studio is completely gone now, and there's a high rise. So the history of Nashville has been changed, or the history hasn't, but the landscape of Nashville has been changed so much, but it's still one of the most exciting places on the earth to me. I love to go there. You can still walk in these little hole-in-the-wall bars and hear some of the best music. It was said one time that the reason Nashville is so special is, you've got all these little towns, and usually, especially as it was a few years ago, in these little bitty towns, you've got one or two people that really stand out. They're great musicians or great singers, and they'll win the county talent show or whatever. Just think about all the little towns in America, and now are from around the world, but the best of the best all moved to Nashville. So Nashville is a place where some of the most talented people in the world still live and make music, and now industry, not just music. But anyway, I hope that some of this history today, I feel like I maybe rambled just a little bit, but I hope that you've enjoyed it. And if you're looking for a place to go spend a few days, go to Nashville. And I love it so much, I bought a house there. And I've lived in Nashville a couple different times through the years when I was younger. And so it's just a special place to me. We're actually, I'll go ahead and make this announcement, in the church that I pastor, High Praises Church. We're actually talking to different real estate people right now. We are going to be opening a campus in Nashville really soon. And so Nashville is a special place because I understand, it's a special place to me because I understand people go there with dreams. They go there with aspirations. And it's not always the easiest business to break into. It's not always, the more competitive it gets, the more heartbreak can happen. And I think one of the reasons that I have such a desire to be there is in a city where so many dreams can come true is also a place where Satan can really shatter someone's self-esteem, just make them so depressed. And I want them to know that, and I want to be, I just feel the Lord has placed this, it was even prophesied to me back in, the early 2000s before I even really thought about having a church in Nashville. Although the dream and desire's now been there for at least 15 years. But I just have a desire, and like I said, someone spoke to me one time and told me that they felt like the Lord had told them and showed them that because of, I guess, my desire or whatever, that I would be there ministering to people. And I just believe that no matter where you are in life, because a lot of people that have had a lot of big success and then they haven't conditioned their mind to be stable when that glitz and glamour fades away, it can really be damaging to them. So I want to help people get a strong foundation in Christ. So whatever you do, whether it's sing country music, you're a CEO of a company, you wash cars, whatever, at the end of the day, your foundation is in Christ alone. And so Nashville's a great place, a wonderful place. They've got a lot of hot chicken. I don't eat chicken anymore, but they got a lot of hot chicken. So go get you some hot chicken. Hey, I'm Jack Midkiff. Thank you for being a part of this podcast, and I'll see you next time.